2021. Our invocation this evening will be offered by Tim Allison, Chaplain and Bereavement Coordinator of Visiting Nurses Association. If you would please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear God, to a world of uncertainty, we speak and hope for certainty. To a world that seems to lack so much peace, we speak peace. To a world that seems to lack hope, we speak hope. Most of all tonight, we pray for your wisdom and we pray for your compassion as we offer these decisions. May they be a reflection of who you are and who you have called us to be. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmembers Huff.
Here.
Perkins.
Here.
Stewart.
Here.
DeLucy.
Here.
Steinmeier.
Here.
Hobart.
Here.
Mayor Weir.
Here. We do have some citizens who have requested to speak to the council this evening. The first is Kevin Baird, who requests to speak to the council regarding consent agenda number 1. Mr. Baird, are you here? Are you joining us online? Oh, hi.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Kevin Baird, a resident of the 3rd District. My comments, thoughts, and opinions shared with you tonight are my own. Let me get rid of the fog shield here. My comments, thoughts, and opinions shared with you tonight are my own, and do not reflect those of my employer, family, or friends. I do feel again it is necessary to disclose I am actively employed by our
Mr.
neighboring.
Baird, I'm sorry, could I ask you just to get a little closer to the microphone so
Sure.
we can hear you? Thank you.
Yep. I feel it necessary to again disclose I am actively employed by our neighboring electric utility, but again must stress I am here on my own behalf as an engaged member of this community. First, a comment directed to our IPL manager, general manager, Mr. Nail. Mr. Nail, I've been going back and watching old council and PUAB meetings and have consistently seen a high level of professionalism from you that I would like to call out and recognize. Most recently, the last council meeting on July 6th had an example of this professionalism that I would like to spend a moment highlighting. For those looking for direct reference, please refer to the July 6th recording of the council meeting on YouTube starting at about the 21-minute, 30-second mark. In response to our question about how we were fulfilling our SPP obligations while Unit 5 was offline, Mr. Nail informed the council that SPP allows us leniency to not meet those obligations when we are down for maintenance, of which this is the case. However, if we chose not to repair this unit, that would remove that leniency when we would be on the hook to fulfill those requirements. Taking this thing completely off the rails, this council, or better yet, a specific member of this council, openly insinuated that IPL had previously skirted these requirements for years by telling SPP that Blue Valley 1 and 2 were down for maintenance, knowing full well IPL had no intentions of repairing those units. This council member then questioned Mr. Nail why we could not do the same with this unit. Mr. Nail, professionally but firmly, had to inform the council that since he was the GM in charge now, he would not lie to SPP. Since this council at the July 6th meeting or last week's study session failed to address these comments, and the most recent PUAB meeting held on July 15th was held without mention of this either, allow me as a resident of the city and a customer of IPL to say thank you for the way that you handled that situation, and I hope your management and others were as appreciative as I was in the way you conducted yourself on IPL's behalf. Whether there are any long-term repercussions from this unfortunate interaction last week remains to be seen. Agencies like the Midwest Reliability Organization are tasked with ensuring compliance to our obligations. So openly discussing how we have previously avoided those obligations through deceptive means shines a spotlight on this city that is not needed now or ever. I know the PUAB has been talking for months about holding public forums on topics of interest related to IPL. Perhaps a review of this interaction and a look back at how IPL handled this event with SPP is something that should get bubbled up for attention while that is underway. What other skirting of rules and procedures is openly known by IPL's employees and staff? Does the city have an anonymous hotline where employees can divulge future concerns like this? If not, why not? Were any concerns regarding this incident reported at the time? I'll stop there. This city's reputation is to be protected at all costs, and open discussion about skirting rules and past precedent of doing so causes direct harm to that reputation. Whether it is actively encouraged in deception, alleged hostility to our field crews trying to do their job, the lack of preparedness I've witnessed from this council on matters of extreme importance, it's quite frankly embarrassing. Far be it from me to tell other adults how to conduct themselves in a public forum, but as elected officials, you should strive to hold yourselves to a higher standards as representatives of the city.
You have 1 minute.
Tone is set at the leadership level. Finally, on a separate note, I would kindly ask that the council, city manager, or staff provide more details regarding the public notice posted this past Friday on the city's website related to December's cyber attack. It is concerning to read that personally identifiable information, PII, was being stored in employee email accounts. It is unclear from the statement whether it was employee PII, citizen PII, or both, and what may or may not have contributed to this incident. Further details are needed to clarify this and what is being done to establish additional safeguards for the protection of this type of data. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Matthew Shurka, who requests to speak to the council regarding Bill number 21-039, Conversion Therapy Ordinance. Mr. Shurka? Okay, he was supposed to join us virtually, so I will move on to our other speakers, and maybe we'll come back to him before we move on in our agenda. Our next speaker is Anthony Giamita, who wishes to speak to the council regarding the PUAB appointments. Mr. Giamita.
Hello. Anthony Giamita, 1008 South Jones Road. At the June 21st, 2021 City Council meeting, a resolution was put before this council making an appointment to the Public Utility Advisory Board. Full disclosure, the person named for this appointment was myself. It was argued by some that the presentation of that resolution was inappropriate due to the fact that the nomination was not recommended by the council interview committee, and I quote, because of procedural that we as a council have established, it should, unquote, it should be, quote, kicked back to the next council interview committee, unquote. I find it interesting that now a resolution worded exactly the same way, with only the name being different, has been put before the council tonight for consideration without the council interview committee's recommendation. I suggest that if it was inappropriate on June 21st, 2021, it is still inappropriate on July 19th, 2021. The council interview committee made no recommendation to this council for appointment to the PUAB. This vacancy should be kicked back to the next council interview committee for their consideration. The hypocrisy of this council needs to stop now.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Holmes Osborne, who wishes to speak to the council regarding board appointments.
Thank you. My name is Holmes Osborne. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I wanted to chat about board appointments. I looked at many of the appointments on the boards that various boards that we have, and I have a few comments. One is that it seems like we have the same people, same players over and over who are involved in independent city politics. Why don't we try to get some younger folks on some of these boards, some folks with new ideas, not just the same old players over and over again. Also, I don't see a lot of diversity. When I'm out and about in Independence, I see lots of interesting people from interesting countries and from Latin America and Africa and places like that. I don't see that in these boards. I sit upon the board of the community college, Metropolitan Community College. I serve Sub-District 4, which is this district, and we do a great job with this issue. Half the board's African American. We have a chancellor who's African American. We have presidents of colleges who are from Asia. We have top executives at our school who are of Latin descent. I think the City of Independence could do a little bit better job with this issue. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kenneth Love, who wishes to speak to the council regarding city ordinances.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council. Kenneth Love, 16808 East George Franklin Drive, Independence, Missouri. I am in District 3. I'm here tonight to speak about ordinances that I have watched over the last few years just be passed by the council, previous council also. Moving fast forward to this council, weeks in, y'all have done the same thing. Pass ordinance after ordinance after ordinance. And I'm sure tonight you're going to be voting yes, no on ordinances. The problem becomes is where are the people to enforce these ordinances? We have problems with the rental ready program. We have problems with the Independence Police. We have problems with the fire department. All these ordinances that we keep getting, but not getting anything done. You make a phone call, don't get me wrong, code compliance department, young lady answers the phone, she's trying as hard as she can. But when you drive on 39th Street, just past Crackerneck Road, brand new place being built up, tonight the grass was this high. Go behind Walmart, Target, you find cars, you find trash. This is not the City of Independence's responsibility to clean up those parking lots. It's their responsibility. But who's going to enforce this? We say we got homeless problem in Independence. Yeah, there's some, you see them all night, all day walking. That's our problem that we need to clean up. So where do I look, or where do y'all look to answer these questions that I had tonight? The rental ready program, I can speak on very hard of one investor, 3 years now, 3 years, he still does not have a business license. Before the rental ready program went into effect that required the rules that we have in place today, he at that time, he was a license holder. Then he tested the water, and he's still testing the water because he knows, just like Mr. Scannell told me, the decision y'all have made, you cannot evict the tenant for the landlord's problem. Now, it's the City of Independence requirement for investor landlords to have a business license, to have their properties inspected, or it's going to be the landlord forced to evict those tenants. Well, here's a guy that I can tell you has got 18 properties in the City of Independence. 3 years. It's not the tenant's fault that he's not coming forth and getting a business license. The only thing we can do is cite him. The courts put a bench warrant out for his arrest, and that's it. So I would like to make a recommendation to the council to maybe have a study session on the rental ready program. We have to put some teeth, bite into some type of fines against landlords. And I am a landlord, I am an investor, but I am one that obeys by the rules.
You have 1 minute.
With that being said, 1 minute. I hope y'all put together a study session and invite me, because I have some great ideas for you. Thank y'all. Have a good night.
Thank you. We did have one other speaker who signed up. I want to make sure that, and check and see if he has joined us. Matthew Shurka requests to speak to the council regarding bill number 21039, conversion therapy ordinance. Mr. Shurka, have you been able to join us? Okay. Is there anybody else present who would like to address the council this evening? All right. This takes us to our consent agenda. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to move. Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to move that we accept or approve the reports and recommendations of the city manager.
Second.
I would like to, it's been moved and seconded. I would like to pull item number 1. Are there any other items any council member we would like to pull for separate consideration? Hearing none, please call the roll on the consent agenda minus item number 1.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
DeLucy.
Yes.
Steinmeier.
Yes.
Hobart.
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes. Item number 1 was postponed to tonight. This is the item regarding General Electric International awarding, or I'm sorry, to issue a purchase order for just under $2 million for the inspection and repair of the generator rotor for combustion turbine H5. We've had quite a bit of discussion about this. I was not here to attend the study session last week, but I did watch the study session and the presentations and the comments and questions from the council. Since I was not here to ask questions, I did submit today some questions for the city manager and the Independence Power and Light Director to clarify some things. And these were really, questions in regard to what are our options tonight if we choose to either approve this purchase order, postpone it, or not approve it. So that's been provided to all the council members. We'll certainly put it in, we can put those, include those in the minutes from the meeting as well. Madam City Clerk, so they're available to the public. And unless there's something in here specifically that a council member thinks that is relevant that hasn't already been asked or answered in the council meeting or the study session, we're happy to review that. But I think the one thing that I wanted to really focus on is what is the timeline for the power generation RFP that has been developed. They were this month, we are expected to receive the report on the siting study, which we issued. The draft is due by September 1st of the RFP. That would be issued, presented to the POAB and the council prior to being issued for responses. It would be out for 30 days once that gets looked over by the POAB and the council. And then there'd be a 30-day review process to make a presentation and recommendation to the POAB and the council in December of this year. So, I think that that's important to have that game plan, and once we have that RFP, when we'll get a chance to look at it, see if we like it, decide if we're going to issue it. There's a lot of ways that can, a lot of twists and turns that could take. We could get the responses, and then we certainly don't have to accept them. We can review those. So what I would like to suggest this evening is that we consider, again, postponing this purchase order until we are further down the road in that RFP process. This is a large amount of money to commit. I understand we can't prolong it forever, but I would like to see this be a part of a longer-term plan that that really addresses what our long-term needs are. I heard a lot in the presentation on Monday night that was new information to me about, I mean, we've been working under the assumption that these CTs could last 10 years. Now that's whittled down to 8 years. Then we heard 100 years. And so, I mean, I know you can make something last as long as you maintain it. I mean, people are, collect Model Ts and they still run, but they're not the most efficient vehicle on the road. That's for sure. So I would like, to open this up for any further discussion. But I would like to make a motion that we postpone this until December of 2021 and continue to do some research on what our long-term plan is and see how this expenditure would fit into a long-term solution for our energy needs in the city. So my motion is for postponement until December 2021.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Mr. City Manager, you might have to get Jim up here, Mr. Nail. It kind of goes in with what the mayor was stating here. SPP's protocol stipulates when, how to communicate outages, deadlines, specifically on forced outages that need significant rebuilds and replacements. Could you tell me what that is?
Yes, and I have asked Mr. Nail to go ahead and come up and.
Thank you.
Mayor, Council, Jim Nail, Director, IPL. Anytime that there is an outage, we, in very short order, we make an entry into SPP's monitoring system. The acronym is CROW, and I can't actually tell you what that stands for, but the CROW system is how they report outages, and so that entry is already in there that this unit's in outage. The SPP has a group called the Market Monitor. They look at those outages and see what the timeliness is, and if they think that somebody is manipulating the market or using outages to either delay or to advantage themselves for different purchases, then they will ask about that. I don't know that there's a hard and fast rule for how long an outage can go. It really depends on what the need is in the market, what the demand is. The fact that we're here coming into the summer months, the market monitor is already asking us what our plan is and when we're going to get it back in running condition. So it's possible that this delay could end up requiring us to purchase short-term capacity to replace it for the summer load.
So the other night, GE said there's no way they would have it for the summer anyway. But that brings me to question, the second part of this is that since COVID, what's their new protocol? Because there's no way that you can get this material or equipment out here. There has to be some kind of change. And I know we're not going to make it this summer. I don't care if you tore it down right tomorrow. You're not going to get it back before the end of the peak of the summer.
Councilman, we talked to GE today, and they gave us an estimate of anywhere from 3 weeks to 2 months. It depends on the nature of the fault once they get it taken apart in the shop. So best case, we could get it back in 3 weeks. Worst case could be 2 months if they have to do a rewind.
One other thing that intrigued me with the GE guys last week, and that is this trailer that's available that they could get out here in 2 weeks. That is a temporary thing, and it could also become a permanent thing and set in the same footprint. I was wondering if we've exhausted all these choices here that maybe that we could do a lease option where we could have one of these sitting here and lease it, and that be the money for the lease would go towards the purchase. Have we looked at anything like that to? I know you're in a pickle out there. I'm not denying that. I'm just trying to figure out a way to save $1.9 million.
Yes, sir. Understood. GE does offer a rent-to-own type of scenario. I don't know what kind of terms they would have on that. A trailer-mounted unit would run 10 to 12 million for a used one of about 25 to 30 megawatt size, and what we found listed online and talking to GE was 19 to 20 million would be for a brand new one. So there's a lot of variables in there. His comment about having it able to be in production in 2 weeks, their actual brochure online says 30 days, but all the examples were Angola, Nigeria, places that don't have the EPA and SPP to worry about. Here in this area, you'll find examples of trailer-mounted units that they bring into disaster areas where the utility infrastructure has been destroyed and they need to get power back. That's not our case. So we still would have to go through the regular EPA, Department of Natural Resources permitting. We would still have to have the unit go through SPP's process because those processes are specific to the actual generating equipment, not the location. So even though we've got a permit, an air permit for Blue Valley, it's for Blue Valley 1, 2, and 3. We would have to have EPA and DNR review that for any replacement equipment.
Sure, but SPP also loves munis, so that's how they get paid. So I'm sure there might be a little negotiating room there. I know they have guidelines and you have to live up to them. I understand all that, but I appreciate it.
Sure.
Mr. Nail?
Madam-
Go ahead, Mr. Hobart, go ahead.
Mr. Hobart, you can go ahead.
I'm sorry. Thank you both. I just had one question, Mr. Nail, or Mr. City Manager. What, if we postpone this till December, is there a cost for us for that, or do we know?
We would have to discuss that with Southwest Power Pool Councilman. There is a possibility that we would be required to go out and purchase short-term capacity to make up that difference over the summer months.
Well, then a follow-up would be, do you have any idea whatsoever that would be, or can you find out for us in short order?
We asked our energy partner, Tenaska, to look into that for us, and right now what they were finding is, in the market, capacity is running about $600,000 a year for firm capacity. Yeah. So if that's broken down on if it works out on a monthly basis, about $50,000 a month plus whatever transmission costs would be involved, depending on where the location of the source is.
So the information, Mr. Councilman Hobart, that we received in the memo today, or the response to my questions, was estimated about $500 per year on the Onetta contract, but as Mr. Neal says, we would have to see if we can do a month-by-month lease.
Right. If we go with Onetta, which right now Onetta is cheaper than what we found on the market, but it's for the life of the contract. So you're looking at all the way to 2030.
Yeah.
Contracts that are available right now in the market are running approximately $600,000 for a year, so $50,000 a month plus transmission costs.
Councilmember DeLucy?
I know that the H5 you put in for special accelerated type of approval because we were on a fast track to try and fix the H5 and do more capacity. Will this purchase order, I mean, is this going to mess up SPP approving our fast track in any way, shape, or form? If they know we deliberately delayed 6 months, is that going to hurt our chances for the fast track?
We have applied under the for generation at the Blue Valley site, so I would hope that this would not impact that. We would just have to wait and see.
Any further discussion?
I do have a question. If we repair H5, it could cost up to 1.9. I understand that. And let's say we resolve our future generation and H5's operation. And so we have excess capacity. Can we sell the excess capacity and make money?
Yes, that's exactly what we would do. Our intent with our replacement plan right now is to look at sufficient generation that we could retire any or all of the combustion turbines with more efficient, up-to-date units that have much lower fuel cost. As long as those units are operational, there would be no requirement to retire them, so the capacity they represent, it would be something we could market. Now, on the cost, I just wanted to give you a little more information. We did a breakdown of the different parts and pieces of GE's repair plan. To disassemble the unit here, ship it to their facility, inspect it, test it, and ship it back is $464,591. So that's best case. If they get it there, tighten up the connections, and it passes the test, $464,000. If they have to rewind the unit, that's strip all the copper off and then wind it back up after they've done the repair. Then it goes, depending on how much copper they have to replace, anywhere from 1.1 to 1.35 million. The rest of that 1.9 is a lot of contingencies that we don't necessarily have to do or expect, but we put the PO in for the full amount because you never know until they get it in the shop. You don't know what it's going to be, and rather than take a chance on having to come back for more, we requested the full amount. But realistically, you could probably expect to spend around 1.1 to 1.3 or less.
Councilman Huff?
I had one other question. When you said that, I noticed on this particular one, it doesn't say not to exceed. That's kind of unusual. It's kind of open door there. If we're so sure that it's not going to be 1.9, why don't we have not to exceed? Number one. Number two, did I catch the GE guy said that he was going to rob Peter to pay Paul? I thought he said he was going to strip I-2 and take it over to H. Did I misread that, or is that what I heard?
There was about $300,000 in that quote to move a rotor from one of the H units or one of the I units to H. If we decided that we were going to take a longer period to, for example, on this, like to delay the repair, those units, H5 and the 2 units at I, are interchangeable. They're the same design. So we would have a possibility of moving a rotor from I to H so that we could get the a gas-powered unit back in operation. But that was that's $300,000 is built into that 1.9.
Right. But what I'm having a trouble swallowing there, so we have an outage at H, but we can go and rob 2. So now we have an outage at 2, but we have to have all this stuff, and now we got H6 running, or 5, whatever, and now I2's down. So I'm lost on what we're doing here.
Well, it does not help us on the capacity side, but what it does is it allows us to operate a more cost-effective unit. The H's are
so
cheaper.
It's all about
than
the cost efficiency and not the unit being off.
Correct. It does not solve that does not solve the
I heard him say
capacity.
that.
It just gives us an option for running the units with gas instead of diesel.
So what if we left I2 like it was and saved that $300,000 and just took? I'm just trying to figure out why we're spending $300,000 to make one work when that one already does work.
We didn't say we would. That was an option the GE quoted us in case we were interested in making a move like that.
Okay.
Mr. City Manager, can you just briefly clarify the difference between a purchase order and a contract? When we do a contract, we typically say not to exceed a certain amount, but that's different than a purchase order.
Yeah, the purchase order, we're buying either a specific amount of some good or service, or we may, have intervals that we're going to buy. A contract is usually for specific terms, conditions, deliverables. Both parties have responsibilities and deliverables that they're acknowledging to one another. So that's the difference in the language because of the variables on the specificity between the two.
Right. So in a purchase order, and then we also build in overages of 10% in contracts.
Correct.
Contingency.
Correct.
Which we don't in purchase orders. So this is, if we were to issue a purchase order for this 1.9 million, as Mr. Neal said, if we don't spend it all, then we just get that money back, right? So,
Right,
yeah.
that would be in the project account, but then we would bring something to council to reduce that back to the fund balance of the Power and Light Fund.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks. Further discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilman Perkins.
so if we vote in the affirmative to hold this over, do we need to immediately start working to see what we need to do to get that extra capacity?
We'll have to have that discussion with Southwest Power Pool and let them know here's our plan, here's our time frame, and if they want the capacity for the summer, then we'll get out and start looking in the market to find a bid for it.
do they have any strings that they can hold over us to say, no, go ahead and get this thing fixed now?
Not necessarily, no. The requirement would be to replace the capacity.
Just however we need to do it?
Whatever we have to do to replace the capacity, that's our obligation.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll on the motion to postpone?
Councilmember Huff?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
No.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Sorry about that. Yes.
Mayor Weir?
Yes. Motion passes. Okay, where are we? Okay, we're on to our public hearings. There was a long consent agenda, so. Our first public hearing this evening is for the rezoning from R30 PUD, High Density Residential Planned Unit Development, to R6 Single Family Residential for part of the property located at 218 North Delaware Avenue. This is new information only. Mr. Arroyo.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Rick Arroyo, the Assistant Community Development Director here at the city. This rezoning application was considered by Planning Commission back on June 22nd of this year. Planning Commission did recommend in favor of this rezoning. This is a small 10-foot by 18-foot piece of property that is currently zoned R30 PUD, and the request is to change that to R6. I have no new information to add.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from the council on the public hearing? Public hearing is closed. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 21-036, an ordinance approving a rezoning from District R30 PUD High Density Residential Planned Unit Development to District R6 Single Family Residential for part of the property at 218 North Delaware Avenue in Independence, Missouri. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Weir?
Yes. Ordinance passes. Our next public hearing is for the application by Justin Barnes with Club Car Wash, requesting a special use permit to operate a car wash at 19151 East 39th Street South. This is new information only. Mr. Arroyo.
Thank you, Mayor, and members of the council again. This is a special use request that was heard by Planning Commission again on June 22nd of this year. Planning Commission did recommend in favor of the special use. This is for a tunnel car wash facility that is on kind of the northeast corner of the parking lot of the Independence Center shopping center. I have no new information to report.
Okay, are there any comments or questions from the council on the public hearing? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 21-037, an ordinance approving a special use permit to operate a tunnel car wash on property located at 19151 East 39th Street South in Independence, Missouri. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Weir?
Yes, ordinance passes. Our last public hearing is for an application received from SM Trading Corporation, doing business as Fuel Espresso number 41, for retail selling of intoxicating liquor of all kinds in the original package for a convenience store with gas under construction at 4200 South Lee Summit Road. This is a full public hearing. Mr. Scannell.
Yes, Mayor and members of the council, my name is Tom Scannell. I'm the Community Development Director. S&M Trading Corporation is applying for this packaged liquor license. As the council will remember, back in April of this year, they heard this liquor license prior. At that meeting, the council had denied the liquor license. Since that time, S&M Trading Corporation held a neighborhood meeting in May of this year. It was attended by several neighbors who were concerned with the operations of the facility at that location. S&M listened to what the neighbors' concerns were. They made changes to their operations as well as changes to the site. And since that time, they have, in June of this year, S&M has held a neighborhood watch meeting with the adjoining neighborhood. This application meets the alcoholic beverage code, and that concludes staff's presentation.
Okay, this is a full public hearing. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in support of this application? Is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition? Please come up to the podium. Just state your name for the record.
David Hicks. I live at 4160 South Carriage, which is my backyard faces this, so I'm the one that's actually looking at it. I wasn't at the last meeting because, frankly, I thought it was going to get voted in whether I was here or not, because you'd already approved the building of it, but and we weren't given a voice in that. But I watched the meeting from home, and I was very impressed, and I want to thank you for listening to us, and thank you, Mr. Steinmeier, Mr. Huff, and Mr. Hobart, who came to our meetings, and thank Jerry Roush from Fuel Expresso for coming and listening to us and hearing some of our concerns. I don't think any of the other neighbors are here, but since I wasn't here last time, I thought I should speak this time. I think we're not really thrilled that we're going to have fuel sale or liquor sales right across the street from our subdivision. I think there were some, from what I understand in the past, there were it was told that there wouldn't be this kind of a business could go in there, but some things have passed over time. Anyway, it was allowed to happen. That being said, Food and Fuel Expresso has come forward and told us about the plan for the store, what their basic focus is. I was shown the plans for the original store, which I was pretty upset. It was basically a liquor store with 4 gas pumps in front of it. And that would have been totally unacceptable, I believe, in the close proximity to housing and families and the city park, which is right down the street. But that being said, with the assurances that I've heard from Food and Fuel Expresso, if they carry through their plan, I don't think it'll be the best outcome, but I think they'll be pretty good neighbors from what they're saying. I'd like to say also that if they don't keep up their end of the bargain, that you will see us back here again, and I know in this forum or whatever. But they did come and support our neighborhood watch. We're trying to get that up and going. And I can't remember the police officer who came, the captain who came and spoke to us, but he was very informative. And I know you've got some challenges with the police department, and so I hope you're addressing that. But like I said, we're not crazy about it being there. We're not crazy about the liquor sales, but we're hoping that they keep up their end of the bargain and become good neighbors with us. Carriage Hills. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak to the council? Are there any comments or questions from the council on the public hearing?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Madam Mayor.
Oh, just a moment. Councilman Steinmeier.
Thank you. I'd just like to commend the ownership group for making the efforts that they have to meet with the residents, listen to the concerns. This is what a good business neighborhood relationship should look like. They listened, they made changes, and I understand the concerns, but I also understand that I think they will be attentive to anything that you as neighbors see that is a concern. They've extended that. I wish every business owner paid attention to the way they've handled this, because it just makes it so much easier for communities to work through those issues. So I commend my district. I think they did a fantastic job, but we had a lot of help doing that. But and I do appreciate Councilmember Hobart and Councilmember Huff for coming, and some of our neighborhood specialists that help us set up that the program that we're going to try to get in place, just so that we can be responsible for our communities and not put all the pressure on the police department. And we do, I do appreciate their coming out and addressing the community as well. So we have some real rock stars in this community, and I appreciate that. So I'll be supporting this tonight.
Thank you. Councilman Hobart?
Yeah, I was going to say exactly what Councilmember Steinmeier was. So agree 100%. Mr. Roush from the ownership group has been so on top of this and so concerned about the citizens. It's really just been from a city council standpoint, while we respect the citizens and know that they're not entirely happy, but the way the ownership group has handled this has been extremely professional. And anyway, I'll be supporting it as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the council on the public hearing? Public hearing is closed. Madam City Clerk.
Council action is requested on the application received from SM Trading Corporation doing business as Fuel Espresso number 41 for a retail selling of intoxicating liquor of all kinds in the original package for a convenience store with gas under construction at 4200 South Lee Summit Road.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Weir?
Yes, ordinance passes. This brings us to our non-ordinance action items. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 21-784, a resolution appointing Laura Dominic as a member of the Public Utilities Advisory Board of the City of Independence, Missouri.
Is there any discussion on this item? Councilman Huff.
Yes. It's going to be a little bit lengthy. I would like to refresh all the council members and the mayor's memory. This is a very situation that occurred April 1st, 2019, as a member of this council. There was a PUAB vacancy and only one applicant. The council diplomatically voted to wait on more applicants. At the meeting, Council Member DeLucci made a motion to fill this seat with the same applicant. Our motion was voted down, and Mayor Weir stated that we have a committee to pick recommendations and the committee and brought forth, and at this point there was none brought forth. I wanted all of our citizens to understand the council interview committee, and it has functioned for decades. It's a long-standing diplomatic process to create a short list for the council to vote on applicants. It works on the citizens' best interest to find the most qualified and confident people and to prevent cronyism from filling committees based on friendships or any kind of political rewards. I served on this last interview committee, and there was no recommendations made by this committee. So why, once again, are we having a council member introducing a resolution to fill a committee vacancy? This overturns the council's committee recommendations and to continue that search. Several council members have stated previously that they support the interview committee process, but once again, one council member chooses to ignore the process tonight. The applicant is close personal friend and some of the council members here, and has worked on their campaigns to get elected and is already serving on 2 committees. I will be voting no on this resolution tonight and urge my fellow council members to send this back to the interview committee. Please follow the process that was developed to prevent cronyism. We need to communicate for these committee vacancies and the citizens that can apply for them. Otherwise, we just need to abolish the interview committee and go back to individual council member appointments.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Councilmember DeLucci.
I spent 3 hours interviewing candidates for the PUAB. Laura Dominic interviewed. For whatever reason, some people say she didn't interview. Well, that's not true, she did. As did a longstanding friend of mine, Marcy Gregg, who I've known for 40 years. Laura Dominic has never worked on my campaign, but Marcy Gregg has. We struggled within this committee I made a motion which was seconded for Laura Dominic. The vote was yes, no, and pass. There was no other nomination. The PUAB is too important. This is a one-year appointment. We are facing major, major decisions. Laura Dominic is a trained, certified public accountant. She greatly assisted us on her own time when we went through the health insurance debacle of a few years ago. Every time I went to those health insurance meetings, Laura Dominic was there taking notes, trying to help the employees understand what was being asked of them and what was being negotiated. If I was going to appoint a crony friend, it would be Marcy Gregg. Well, my very first call was to Marcy Gregg saying, Marcy, I'm going to move for the appointment of Laura Dominic, not you. And I'm going to do it because I believe she is the most qualified person for this position. Nothing in the interview process was violated other than our committee failed to do its job. We failed to make a recommendation. And so the question became, do we ask these poor people to again go through another interview process, or do we come back to the full council and say, what do you guys want to do? Let's talk about it. I was told it would be brought forward at a study session and we would discuss it with the full council. That was not done. This is too important. I'm not going to be manipulated into not putting forth the most qualified candidate for this position. And that is the reason I suggested Laura Dominic. Whether somebody agrees with that or not, let's vote. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
you know, with the issues that we had facing us as a city, for us to take time to try to figure out why the process is broken, not working, when it has in the past. And I was silent in the last one. I would have liked to have seen something different the way when I sat for hours in an interview committee. And I went with what they thought was right in the time. I'm just not going to be silent on this one, though. I think that sometimes we have to be reminded that our charter tells us that, you know, in section 5.2, it says no council member shall grant a special consideration, treatment, or advantage to any citizen beyond that which is available to every other citizen. I know, because we've heard the position on this particular candidate, how she feels about rates, how she felt about us giving back a one-time credit, and she made her thoughts known here, and I was troubled by some of the things she said to the council. I don't think that she is the best candidate. She may be qualified. I just don't know that she's the best. My other concern is that we're getting, the PUAB it's a charter group that represents ratepayers. Ratepayers. That's you and me. And I just want to make sure that we're not being driven towards some political special interest group, maybe, that we're getting pushed towards AMI again, that I'm not saying that's what happened, but if I sit back and look at it, it feels like we're stacking it that direction. And that would be undermining the will of our residents. So I do have concern. I wish that we were talking about fire, police, homeless issues, blight, these things tonight. But instead, we're talking about why we're doing end arounds around a process that's worked. And I wish we would go back, and it's okay. I would rather do it slow, easy, and fair for you, for every one of you, because that's what the charter says our mandate is. That's our mandate. We're supposed to take care of your public interest. And at PUAB, that is a committee that represents ratepayers. That's you. And I just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. And if we need to slow down, if there's this much disagreement, I would think it would be a good thing to go back. Why is it wrong to go back and make sure we're doing it right for you? So I'm going to be voting no, not because of any personal anything. It's just that I think that the process should work for you.
Madam Mayor, if I might,
Councilmember Delucci?
I forgot to mention, nothing about the process prevents a council person from making a recommendation, which is exactly what I'm doing. And by the way, I voted against AMI. This is not about AMI. This is about putting the most qualified person on the PUAB for 1 year. Thank you.
I have one other comment also. You know, there was, I believe, 6 or 7 applicants on there. There was qualified people on. I don't understand. All citizens are supposed to be equal. You're supposed to pick the best candidate. But this lady, and she's good on the committee she's on. I'm not divided. But how about somebody that really wants to be on there too? Don't they get a chance? Do we always have to have the same people? Can we have someone different? Someone with different views? Someone that's not having any kind of agenda? I mean, she sat here and said that 2 of us should be thrown in jail because we violated the charter. Really? We're looking out for the ratepayers here, and that's what this PUAB board is for, is look for the ratepayers, not rubber stamping this council. And these people should be chosen to take care of these ratepayers. You got somebody you're trying to put on there that's against reductions of rates. That is the #1 thing in the charter says. Any excess money, we give it back to the customers in rate reduction. She sat right there and told us she didn't agree. I can't put somebody in there that's not for the ratepayers of this city. I'm sorry. I'll be voting no.
Is there any further discussion?
Madam Mayor, if I may,
Councilman Perkins?
not to drag out the discussion longer, but I was on the interview committee the time before last as we brought forth the candidates and stuff like that. And just for clarification, the situation that we seem to find ourselves in, it was purported to be exactly the same by comments earlier in the meeting. They weren't. They are not exactly the same. The person in question did not interview with the last council committee. He was unable to meet through Zoom. There was calls that were put in there. In no fault of anybody's own, he just was not interviewed and then put forward by one of my colleagues for consideration, which is totally appropriate. And also within the committee, that was myself, Councilman Hobart, and Councilman Steinmeier, even with those wishes that Councilman Steinmeier wanted to come forward, it was always put to him that feel free to discuss to the whole body. That was also part of the process. Bring that person, bring those discussions to the whole body. That's also completely part of the process. So I don't think we've been completely out of bounds of the process that we've been working on here. Can we do things better? Yes, I think it's something that we need to look at as a council, because if we want members to come and serve on these committees, some of these committees will take up a lot of time and a lot of energy from their families and from their jobs. I think we owe it to them to really look at our process for sure. And I do believe, is it on study session for next week for looking at this process and kind of give us a second look, some banter. I think that's kind of where we're at, correct?
Madam Mayor.
Councilman Huff?
There was a little difference also with that one, is that you did have 2 yeses. There was no 2 yeses on anybody on this committee. So it should be pushed to the next committee for them to decide. That's where the violation is.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilman Hobart.
I agree with Councilman Perkins and Councilmember DeLucci, and I'll be voting for this.
Is there any further discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
we may be
Councilman
getting into
Perkins.
the study session stuff now, but in theory, if this was to be postponed or if this was to be voted down, then it goes to the next committee. So in theory, this position could never be filled.
Madam City Clerk, if there's no
You
further
got it.
discussion, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
No.
Perkins,
No.
Stewart,
No.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Steinmeier,
No.
Hobart,
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes. Resolution fails. Madam City Clerk?
Council action is requested on a recommendation from the Public Utility Advisory Board for the removal of participation limits in the community solar farm.
Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Steinmeier,
Yes.
Hobart,
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes. Item passes. This brings us to our ordinances for this evening. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 21-038, an ordinance amending ordinance number 19226 by adding 65 new parcels related to the 24 Highway Complete Streets Phase, project number 70111-801, in order to acquire necessary temporary construction and grading easements, new right-of-way, and general utility easements for the project. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Steinmeier,
Yes.
Hobart,
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes. Ordinance passes.
Bill number 21-039, an ordinance creating section 12.06.008 of the Independent City Code for the prohibition of conversion therapy of minors. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill?
Madam Mayor,
Councilmember DeLucci.
I'll be voting no, it's too broad. That's all.
Any further discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Councilman Stewart.
okay. So it talks about making a prohibited practice. If it would pass, it just mentions that it would prohibit providers that receive compensation for this. So I guess I have a question for our city attorney, Mr. Langsford. Why would it just be people who receive compensation?
When I drafted this ordinance, I modeled it roughly off of the other 3 city ordinances that were in effect in Missouri. And I believe 2 out of 3 of them specifically mention the for money. The reason for that is because I believe the argument could be made that if it's not for money, that it could be the argument, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this properly. At some point you get into the charitable/religious overtones, and then you start getting into a First Amendment issue. If you do it for money, then I believe that severs that that possibility of bringing a First Amendment argument for the religious First Amendment argument. So that was why that was included like that.
Okay. So somebody doing it for money, I mean, in my opinion, would probably be like a licensed therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist. I mean, could that be probably accurate statement?
I would think so, yes.
Okay. So, I mean, this practice has been debunked or discredited by a bunch of different organizations, you know. So I would think that if it was somebody that was licensed, they would already face their own consequences with the organization that they, you know, are part of, or whoever licenses them. Let's see. And then, so the other thing, I've been doing a lot of research on this. It can include a lot of things, and you know, a lot of them, they aren't good. I mean, I'll admit that fully. It can go from anywhere from just simple counseling, electric shock therapy, physical abuse, role playing, showing pornography, and about everything I listed there, except for maybe one, is already illegal. So why the need for another ordinance?
Well, Councilmember, I was asked to draft the ordinance. The need for the ordinance and the request from the ordinance comes from, I believe this came from the Human Rights Commission, perhaps. So I think
you're
that's
the
a question.
prosecutor, so
I am.
You could already charge. Okay, let's say, you know, they were showing minor pornography. That's under federal law. you know, they could be charged under federal law for that, you know, but the other stuff, the physical abuse, that's already illegal, so why would you need another ordinance in addition to what's already on the books?
Again, Councilman, with all respect, that is not my decision.
Okay. I'm also going to be voting no because I agree with Council Member DeLucy that I think it's too broad. That's all I have. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion?
Actually, Madam Mayor, can I
Yes.
say one more thing? So there was an article in the Examiner over the weekend, and it talked about this thing, and it quoted a mayor from another jurisdiction, and he was kind of against, somebody I have a lot of respect for, he was kind of against it, but he mentioned that he just felt it was kind of a feel-good thing, and I also feel that way. I don't think we really have any enforcement on it, so that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff?
No.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
No.
DeLucy?
No.
Steinmeier?
No.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Weir?
Yes. Ordinance fails. Mr. City Manager, before we read 21509, since we have postponed the item regarding the CT, does that impact this at all?
It is directly tied to it, so I would
Yeah.
recommend postponing it to December as well.
Okay, very good. Then I will make a motion to postpone until December.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Sorry. Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Weir?
Yes. Okay, this brings us to our first readings. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 21-040, an ordinance authorizing the removal and destruction of municipal court records that have met all requirements to be eligible for such destruction and are the subject of Circuit Court Administrative Order number 2021-214. Bill number 21-041, an ordinance authorizing a development agreement with Truman Heritage Habitat for Humanity as a qualifying community housing development organization for the development of affordable housing, utilizing 2019-2020 home program funds in an amount not to exceed $181,603.62. Bill number 21-042, an ordinance authorizing a development agreement with Truman Heritage Habitat for Humanity as a qualifying community housing development organization for the development of affordable housing, utilizing 2020 to 2021 home program funds in an amount not to exceed $217,729. Bill number 21-043, an ordinance authorizing a development agreement with Waco's Development Corporation as a qualifying community housing development organization for the development of affordable housing, utilizing 2020 to 2021 home program funds in an amount not to exceed $144,118. Bill number 21-044, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute a sidewalk improvements agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for sidewalk improvements on the north side of US 40 Highway from the Blue Ridge Cutoff to Sterling Avenue as part of the US 40 Highway Complete Streets Project, project number 111802, federal project number STP 3379437. Bill number 21-045, an ordinance de-annexing certain land south of the southeast corner of Truman Road and M7 Highway and authorizing and directing the city clerk to take all steps necessary to accomplish said action. Bill number 21-046, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to accept a grant from Mid-America Regional Council in the amount of $203,443 in the city's Senior Adult Nutrition Site Program for fiscal year 2021-2022 and execute the amendment to the Community Center Services Agreement, making the necessary appropriations, authorizing future change orders for additional funding and/or time extensions, and authorizing certain future appropriations.
Okay, thank you very much. This brings us to council member comments. I will start with Councilman Hobart.
Nothing tonight, Madam Mayor. Just hope everybody's having a nice summer. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Steinmeier.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I got a couple questions for you, Mr. City Manager. First of all, I appreciate the email that you sent out last week, at the end of the week, regarding the directive to begin to enforce our panhandling and addressing our homeless issue. I know I'm getting a lot of folks that are concerned about, with Kansas City removing so many, where are they going? And we've almost become a magnet for this. And the fact that you're now taking action and you're communicating that to IPD, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that directive, how soon will we see that begin to trickle down to the patrols?
Yeah, there's a couple things afoot, council members. You mentioned Kansas City's well-covered 90-day homeless housing program has now expired. We do anticipate with that expiration that potentially we could see further increase in homeless individuals. I will start by saying that I know many of you have shadowed along with our community services unit, Officer Matt McLaughlin and others in that unit, and that their first priority is trying to align homeless individuals with social services. And we are blessed in this community to have a number of nonprofit agencies that focus on this, and they work diligently to try to match those individuals with the services they need, whether it be VA benefits or Community Services League or one of literally hundreds of agencies in the city. They try to pair those up. But there are other individuals who seem to express no interest in matching those services, and who quite frankly are causing disruption in the community, and that does require a different level of response. So a couple of things we're doing in the email that I sent the council last week. Our police department, Park Patrol, is partnering with our parks employees this week, focusing on public parks, primarily many of them focused in the southwest corridor of the city. For those of you who are familiar with Phil Roberts Park, that's seen a lot of homeless traffic through there, but also including one of our larger parks, McCoy Park, as well. So trying to make sure that all of our citizens can go and enjoy these public parks free from any interference or feelings of discomfort or anything like that. In addition to that, had the opportunity to speak with the city attorney as well as our command staff. The council solicitation ordinance that was adopted earlier this year. It's going to probably take a concerted effort of, to be blunt, making people feel uncomfortable by reminding them that those public right-of-ways are not for that purpose unless they have come to apply for a permit in City Hall, which is a whole different ball of wax. So we will stay on this. We will stay diligent. We will continue to find the individuals who want services, those services, and those who aren't looking for services will help them find some other opportunity.
Great, and I appreciate that. Enforcement's a huge thing. I mean, I know what good is it having a lot of laws if we don't, or ordinances, if we don't empower our police officers to enforce them. So this is a good thing. Another ordinance that we probably should remind our citizenry of is that if you're impeding traffic to hand money or food or something out of your car, you can be ticketed, and that's something that you have to remember too. So I was going to ask you if the last time I asked you this, and I know you probably don't have the number, environmental cleanup, it was a huge number. It was like $60,000 for one quarter, and that's unbudgeted, correct?
Correct.
Could we discuss this in a study session and get an up-to-date number of what we spent last year just cleaning up after the homeless?
Yeah, you may have noticed in that note that I talked to you about that we've got a city of city staff, but a committee internally working to coordinate across all those departments, breaking down those silos. I will add to their deliverable list coming to talk to the council about what that interdepartmental response looks like and what some of the costs associated with that are.
And also if we could have on a study session, we need to start talking about fire and police safety out in the newly expanded Crackerneck Creek population that we're so eager to do. We need to have a real honest discussion about our fire support and police support, where we're going to build a new firehouse and substation for the police department. I'd love to have that discussion if we could and start talking about that and where we'd like to locate that, if we could do that.
We'll see what we can put together.
Yeah, I'd appreciate it. But I really just wanted you to know I appreciate the enforcement efforts now. and I'll be looking forward to see how that goes. So that's all I have, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Deluzzi?
Nothing.
Councilmember Huff?
Yes, I had a few things here. It's going to involve Mr. Montgomery, I believe. Maybe he can shed some light on this. Had a lot of calls the last week on backflow preventers.
Direct your question to the city manager,
sorry?
please.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. what the
Backflow
question-
preventers.
What about those?
A lot of notices went out. They were handed to the people. They were dated like 3 weeks ago. The shut-off was like, some people got them Friday for Monday, was one of my questions. Number two, we've been hearing a lot about the shut-off notices and the timing of them. They were coming in. They're dated one thing, but not arriving to the people till after the shut-off date or the day of. I don't know if that's a mailing issue with the new printer or what. And I'd like to have some answers for them two things, at least some kind of explanation to the public.
Yeah, if I could look into both of those for you and get I'll send a response to the full council on that, if that's okay.
Another thing is this MGE on the roads. I know Superior Bowen does a heck of a job when they do a road. And MGE, I don't know who they're hiring, but they kind of get a ripple effect. I am glad that Lisa and her staff is making sure that the roads that they're cutting up so bad, we are getting a full-blown piece of asphalt there. But I'd really like to see that if we have some kind of tolerances for that. I know the one over at Lee Summit Road, it's like going over railroad tracks. And the last thing I have, been speaking to some people about maybe buying out the rest of the solar farm. So I'm glad to raise the limits tonight.
Very good.
Thank you. Councilman Perkins?
Thank you, Mayor. A couple things to kind of dovetail a little bit with Councilman Steinmeier. I was signed up with Mid-America Regional Council. They're doing an illegal dumping community regional discussions, a two-part discussion starting next week, then finishes up the first part of August, kind of talk about the different situations of illegal dumping and the ramifications for that. So I'll report back to the council. It will be a virtual thing. Don't have to travel or do anything. So I'll report back to the council, discussion points and findings of that. Second, I want to do a shout out and kudos to Inglewood Arts and their board of directors. They received $241,000 in tax credits through the NAP program, the Neighborhood Assistance Program, through the state of Missouri to help out with the neighborhoods and the things that they're doing over there. And one of the things that really kind of helped push them and got them guided through was the letter of support from you, Mayor, to get them moving. So good things are happening, so I just want to put that positive note out.
Thank you. Councilman Stewart?
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. The study session agenda regarding council rules of, well, it was regarding how we deal with appointments, boards, and commissions was scheduled for next week. I was not here last week when I had asked for this to be put on an agenda. I asked for it to be put on the meeting that I would be here to attend. So that is what was always the intent, was for that to be on next week's study session. I will be adding some other things to that discussion, Madam City Clerk. We need to have clear policies and procedures. We need to review procedures for how the council conducts its council meetings, how we conduct executive session. The city clerk does a lot of continuing education and has brought some things to my attention that I think that the council needs to clarify and be up to speed on. We have made some changes to how we conduct executive sessions to be in better compliance with the expectations of the Sunshine Law and the citizens. Our procedures in many cases are not clear. The resolution that created the current version of the council interview committee, which is a rotating committee, says that the committee will elect a chair. That does not happen. And it says that there will be a consensus or a recommendation will not come forward. That has not happened. So we have some cleaning up to do on how we conduct things. There's been a lot of discussion, certainly recently and this evening, about enforcement. We shouldn't put in laws because we can't enforce them. All of our laws, we expect our citizens to voluntarily comply with them. And when they don't, then we need them to be on the books so that they can be reported and we can investigate them and prosecute them if necessary. When the law isn't on the books, we can't do anything to compel people to comply with it. That's all I have this evening, Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, I know we had a lot of good speakers tonight, Mayor. There's just a couple things I wanted to follow up for the council's benefit. Our city staff do have access to an app called Stop It through our shared services initiative. So Blue Springs and Lee Summit also use this as well too. It's a place for them to anonymously report any wrongdoing or any things like that that they see going on in the organization, and a third party to be able to investigate those and follow up on it. So we do, somebody mentioned that tonight about a safe space to do that. That's something that our employees have access to. As far as this, go ahead.
I was just messing around to try to, because I knew that it existed, and I wasn't necessarily reporting something, but I didn't find it to be very user-friendly. So maybe we could do some training on that. And I'm a tech genius, as everybody knows, but I couldn't. But maybe a little bit of training on that, or a bit of a walkthrough. I believe we had a presentation on it at one point in time, but maybe some hands-on would be helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you for the suggestion there. We did send out information regarding the December cybersecurity attack. Individuals who we believe were impacted by that received letters directly. If you didn't receive a letter, it means we don't believe that you were impacted by that. If you did, the letter gives you the information that you need. Truly, I do wish we could go into more detail both about what we believe to have happened and how we're guarding against, but that would be a little like Andy Reid saying how he plans to guard against the Raiders and give them a playbook how to attack him. So
we'd beat them anyway.
Yeah. We may not beat the cyberware people, so we'll stay away from them. I just need to remind the council again that a few years ago, the Missouri legislature saw fit to enact Senate Bill 572, which greatly hamstringed our ability to expedite code enforcement, property maintenance code enforcement, implemented a lot of timelines about notification and things. I know some will and some heart may have been good there, but the impact on administering that has greatly reduced our ability to administer code enforcement in an expedited manner. And finally, as far as citizen requests for service, another application, In-Depth Now, is a wonderful place to make your suggestions of code enforcement, requests for services, et cetera. You can geocode where your request is coming from, take a picture, and put all of the verbiage you want in there about what you need. So we would encourage people to do that. It helps us keep a record and a log of that stuff and make sure we don't lose something through the cracks. And that is all I have tonight.
Okay, thank you very much.